is ABC-7 Extra.
Good evening and welcome to this special live edition of ABC-7 Extra Sunday edition. If you're watching this special edition, you know that at this moment, a curfew is in place as we speak. County Judge Ricardo Samaniego made that curfew official earlier today. This and other orders are in direct response to the rising COVID-19 positive numbers. Patients in ICU and hospitalizations, which the judge says is in crisis stage. 4 state mobile tents have been set up at University Medical Center, one for patients, one for pharmacy, another that will be held as a staff and waiting room for patients. A 4th tent has not been set up, but UMC says could come if needed. The entire plan is being worked on, and tonight we find out from Judge Samaniego just how restrictions will be enforced. Joining us now to talk and elaborate more on this order is Judge Ricardo Samaniego, who earlier today outlined the need for these restrictions. Judge, welcome and thank you so much for taking time to talk to us. Just what kind of situation are we in right now in El Paso?
Well, Saul, thank you very much for asking me. It's always a pleasure and honor to be here at KVIA. It's an opportunity to be able to reach out to our constituents and be firm about the fact that we are in a crisis mode. We had been before a little cautious about alarming individuals, and we're trying our best not to do that. I think at this point, the best thing to do is to really let everyone know we are in a very critical crisis here due to the hospitals. If you recall, those of you that keep up with the virus in other parts of the world and around the country, is that once you reach a critical point at the hospitals where you reach capacity, then you're not only impacting COVID patients, but you're also impacting non-COVID patients that might need emergency care. And so when someone with non-COVID gets to an emergency situation, if we don't have the bed space, then we are in a situation that we don't want anyone to be in, to find themselves going through that kind of situation of not knowing when they're going to be seen because of the COVID cases. So this coming together of both the virus and the we've got the flu coming up, but we haven't had a lot of cases of the flu, but that should be coming up pretty quick. And so one of the things we wanted to do is do everything possible to flatten the curve before we get the flu season and before Halloween and before Thanksgiving, because those are real critical points. And historically, since the virus started, we've been very concerned about holidays being one of the biggest contributors. So this perfect storm can happen, and I'm doing everything possible not to allow that perfect storm. And one of them is decreasing mobility in our county. That we have less people moving back and forth and interacting with each other. And having the curfew was a huge step in that direction.
Both you and Mayor DeMargo have been urging residents, and our viewers obviously, to take the necessary precautions. Apparently those precautions have not been heeded. Sadly that we have to talk about this, but what would be the next step? Should we continue to see rising numbers, not only in positive cases, people in the ICU, as well as hospitalizations? Is there a next step?
There is, but it's such a critical step. I had actually considered a full stay-at-home order, which would bring us back to only essential workers being out. We've gone through it at the beginning. It was pretty much a shutdown. But at that point, we were being supported by incentives and unemployment and so forth. So if I were to issue a true stay-at-home order, then the income would be impacted and you wouldn't be in the same situation. Individuals that have gone back to work are no longer getting unemployment, so they'd have to go back and get unemployment. So that was one of the most important considerations, was that we wouldn't impact the income. But there's a point, Saul, that if it gets that critical, then you start balancing things one against each other. And of course, looking at more increases in the hospital situation would begin to outweigh the impact the income would have on 2 to 3 weeks or whatever it would take to flatten the curve. The reason we're becoming a little bit more aggressive and using enforcement, Saul, is because we need to give our healthcare workers an opportunity to catch up, our resources to catch up. So we've got an influx of positives, and at the same time, we're trying to establish protocols and trying to establish tents and trying to establish all these things that we have to do. It's very difficult. So you've got, on one end, you've got, we're trying to fight the virus, right? We're trying to do the best that we can, testing, contact tracing on one end. That's when you already have the virus. And then we got to, on this other balance, we have to make sure that we do everything possible to stop the spread of the virus. And that too are being balanced right now.
Right.
And I believe that moving towards a more aggressive enforcement. And you said it, Saul, we've got the, typically we talk about the 80-20 rule. In our case, I think it's a 90-10 rule. I believe there's only 10% of individuals are not adhering and the 90% are being impacted. And so, and of course, enforcement is something. I had a discussion with the governor. He reached out to me and felt that we were not enforcing properly and that we were sort of dropping our guard and looking at businesses that had more than 50%, that we were not, shutting down businesses that didn't adhere to our order. I don't know where he got that information other than the TABC, but even them, they haven't been that aggressive in citations. So I asked for more TABC agents, but it was the discussion that was pretty aggressive, from both of us, because I'm not going to accept that it's enforcement is the single solution. And our whole conversation was about enforcement.
We will be talking. We're going to go ahead and take a really quick break, and I'm going to ask you more about enforcement because that's obviously something that folks are obviously waiting to hear about. This is ABC-7 Extra Sunday Edition. When we come back, I'll ask the judge how this affects sports and other activities in the city and in the county. You're watching ABC-7 Extra Sunday Edition, where news comes first.
Nancy Pelosi and radical liberals have a plan. Raise taxes, kill oil and gas, gun control. And they're counting on Xochitl Torres Small to get it done. Small votes with Pelosi 95% of the time and earned a D from the NRA. That's why Pelosi is spending millions to bring her back, because she's one of them. Stop Pelosi, stop the liberals, stop Xochitl Torres Small. Congressional Leadership Fund is responsible for the content of this advertising.
Corruption, disgrace, a betrayal of the public trust. It's not a Washington story, it's Yvette Herrell's. While in office, Herrell secured over $1 million of our taxpayer dollars for her own company and an organization run by her own mother. It's why Herrell's actions have been called egregious. Now she's taking tens of thousands from corporate PACs. Corrupt Yvette Herrell would make Washington worse.
DCCC is responsible for the content of this advertising.
From Artesia to Albuquerque, people like you are doing their part to contain the spread of COVID-19. It's called contact tracing. If the New Mexico Department of Health is on the line, answer the call. The conversation is short and confidential. Just answer a few questions about where you've been recently and with whom you might have come into contact. The benefits can go a long way to protect each other and get our economy back on track. Remember, our health is on the line. Answer the call.
I'm Mayor DeMargo. Since my election 3 years ago, our city has faced many successes and many challenges. Through it all, my commitment to El Paso has remained steadfast, and I have full confidence and hope that we will again come together as before. We will continue to be a symbol of hope on the border for all to see. With your support, I will continue my commitment to serve you throughout a second term. I'm Mayor DeMargo, and I approve this message.
Welcome back to this special live edition of ABC-7 Extra. El Paso is now in the spotlight because of our exploding COVID-19 numbers. Earlier today, Mayor DeMargo spoke on CNN.
We've had significant spikes to the point that our hospital capacity is really tapped. We're probably at the end of our rope there.
Now, I also want to welcome back County Judge Ricardo Samaniego. Judge, are we at the end of our rope in terms of our response to this COVID-19 situation?
Well, I don't believe so. Obviously, I don't think he meant it literally. I think the situation right now is that we're doing everything that we can. We've done a lot of things that people don't realize are way ahead of the problem. One of them is the CEO, Jacob Cintron, has really worked months ago. We started working on getting ready for more space, getting the Children's Hospital to be part of that situation, the hospital that was bought on Mesa. So there's a lot of things that are taking place. The flu shots that we went in there with a tremendous campaign, had more in one weekend. We had more individuals taking the flu shot than the entire season last year. So we're doing a lot to create that opportunity. The tents and all that are really, we are at 100% capacity at this time, but we're opening space and we're doing everything possible. We're looking at the city's looking at the the convention center, the tent situation. My discussions with the governor about sending more. We got about 800 medical personnel coming from the state. I think that we're, I'm not going to say that we're in the best situation, but I think we are in the best situation to be where we've got, 1,200 and 1,000 positives coming in on a daily basis. I think we're coming together well. I'll be having a meeting tomorrow morning, a strategic regional meeting with a representative from Juarez, mayor's office, from the Las Cruces mayor, with DeMargo, with Hudspeth County Judge Neely, and Ibarra, our Mexican consulate, Mauricio Ibarra. I really believe this is a strategic focus, and I think that's been missing quite a bit. If everybody takes care of their own situation, then we're not taking care of the dynamics that happens between us. And so I'm really concerned that we don't look at it in an isolated fashion. And I know the governor has looked at us as an isolated, like here's El Paso, but not considering that we're right up against the border of New Mexico and Doña Ana, and we've got a situation in Juarez. Juarez has been such a great neighbor that we the good and the bad. I mean, when it's good, we have commerce and everybody's excited about the monetary situation and economics between the two of us. So why shouldn't we now be prepared to help them out in their situation? Because eventually that's going to help us.
Speaking of which, Judge,
is something new that we haven't looked at.
Yeah, if I may, Judge, you mentioned Juarez, and we do know that the mayor of Juarez is actually hospitalized, and we know that they have a dire situation in Juarez right now. One of the things that was highlighted when I spoke to the Customs Border Protection Acting Commissioner, Mark Morgan, is that there are restrictions of people from Mexico coming into El Paso, only essential workers. However, there are no restrictions for people in El Paso or in the U.S. going over to Mexico. Are you considering such restrictions? Because we also know that a lot of people are coming over here to El Paso to get tested. So are we going to have any restrictions of people traveling to Mexico?
Well, here's the real issue, Saul, and that is that we have registered almost 125,000 residents and U.S. citizens that live in Juarez that come across as well, and there's no way that we're going to prohibit an American coming back from Mexico or from any other place into the United States. So it's a very complicated situation, that it's not just us going over there or that we're limiting people coming from there over here. I think if you look at it closer, there is a lot of interaction between a lot of, like I said, residents and citizens that live in Juarez, that work in the United States. And so we need to look at it, and not in a negative, as if it's their problem, our problem, or Doña Ana's problem. We need to look at it that we've always historically have had this dynamics between us, and it wouldn't be fair now because it's a virus that we act any different. Well, we engage with each other, and we're supporting each other when we have great commerce and a great trade between us. And this is just another element of our relationship.
Let's talk.
I don't want to approach it from who's got the problem,
right?
But how can we address it regionally?
Judge, let's talk about enforcement of some of these orders, the restrictions. First of all, let's talk about the curfew, A. B, the face mask, wearing a face mask. You indicated that people will be fined. They will receive a citation. How do you enforce all this?
You know, each one can be enforced differently. If you've got 15 people out outside their home with cars, that's sort of, it's easy. You go in and you say that you can't do that, and then you can enforce it. When it comes to the masking, just remember that if you're in any situation that you cannot maintain 6 feet distance, a social distance, then you have to wear a mask. So if you're in a situation where you're close to individuals not wearing a mask, you're going to get approached. And whether or not you put your mask back on would be fine. But if you don't put your mask back on, then you will be fined $250. And so there's other situations that, for example, on the curfew, people shouldn't be out after 10 o'clock, but there's going to be essential work. There's things that are allowed even beyond 10 o'clock. I mean, you could have a grocery store that's able to operate, and you could be going to that store because it's open after 10. I know there's a lot of businesses that shut down after 9 o'clock, but if you're out there without doing some essential business, then they can't stop you, and they can't stop you for no violation. They can stop you simply because you're out there.
Judge, let me ask you.
Sheriff,
yeah,
go ahead.
Let me ask you about the legality of it. If it perhaps you have the courts involved in this as well when it comes to the enforcement. Have you involved the judges and the courts in this as well?
Well, of course, I mean, we have an order is a law, and so if I place an order, it's a law, and the enforcement has to take place. The police department, the sheriff's department, the constables, they all have to abide by the law and enforce it like any other law, like passing a red light or whatever other law might be. An order becomes a law that has to be enforced. So they have every right. Any peace officer has the right to enforce the law, and it becomes law. The curfew today became a law here in our county, and therefore it can be enforced, and it will be enforced. Like I said, we've tried different things that we needed to do. The governor was extremely assertive, saying that we were not doing what we needed to do, not to blame the order, but to blame enforcement. I spoke to Sheriff Wiles, very cooperative. We've got a great sheriff, and so he's going to do everything possible to support me. He in turn spoke to Chief Greg Allen, and Chief Greg Allen is going to support the enforcement. I work very close with Constables Garcia and Ugarte that are going to be helping me. We're going to put together a county task force, not to do the actual citations, but to be able to go into businesses and find out if they're doing what they need to do, and then reporting them if they're not adhering to our order.
Okay, we're going to talk a little bit more about that task force that you just mentioned. You're watching ABC-7 Extra. Still ahead, Judge Samaniego is getting ready to meet with law enforcement as well as state officials. I'll ask him about that, also the enforcement and the conversations that he's having with law enforcement officials. We'll be right back.
Xochitl Torres Small's insincere ads look like New Mexico, but her values are all California. Torres Small would be at home in San Francisco, cozying up with Nancy Pelosi. Radical environmentalists are loving on Torres Small after she voted to kill our energy jobs. Torres Small even votes like a gun-grabbing Californian, earning a D from the NRA. Phony ads, California values. Xochitl Torres Small is one of them. The NRCC is responsible for the content of this advertising.
Coronavirus has taught us we can't take anything for granted. Hugs, graduations, the place I come to take walks. But this president and his party are hell-bent on repealing the one law that protects health care for the most vulnerable right now, people with pre-existing conditions. And Tony Gonzalez is lockstep with them. I'm Gina Ortiz-Jones, and I approve this message because that's the difference. Tony takes our health for granted. I never will.
The Stand with Estella Fund provides critical resources to help people in our community battle cancer.
Estella Casas has a new career, helping others to overcome medical challenges. But she'll always be part of the ABC-7 family.
It's such a blessing to have ABC-7 partnering with Albertsons and the El Paso Community Foundation during Breast Cancer Awareness Month.
Please donate to support cancer patients
at standwithestella.org
or at the keypad at your local Albertsons.
Thank you.
John, we need to talk. It's just not working out.
Senator Cornyn, you misled us on the coronavirus.
You voted against funding for masks and ventilators.
And you're still trying to take away protections for people with pre-existing conditions.
It's not us, Senator.
It's you.
You won't fight for us.
And we found someone who will.
I'm MJ Hagar.
And I approved this message because 18 years in Washington was a long run, John. But it's over.
Welcome back to this special edition of ABC-7 Extra. I also want to welcome back our guest, County Judge Ricardo Samaniego. Judge, thank you so much for spending this evening with us. I also want to ask you about the convention center. We had mentioned that will be converted into some sort of center for COVID-19 patients. You want to elaborate on that?
Yes, of course, our best option, Saul, was to be able to get the Beaumont. When I did my research, actually there's never been any military facility that has been allowed, whether it's New York or any other place. So I didn't have really high hopes on that would happen. So the second alternative is to create our own. Obviously, when you look at Beaumont, it has all the facilities. It's set up for a hospital. So the convention center now needs to be established as a hospital. So it does require the Corps of Engineers and all these things and it's happened before because of the homeless situation, or the refugee situation that took place some years back. So it can be converted, but it's really from my perspective, that's not the ideal situation. But that's what we're dealing with at this time. When I spoke to Chief D'Agostino, the tents and all that, we could go through that in less than a couple of weeks. So that's real good resources. I thank the governor for that, but it's obviously not sufficient. The convention center would be the best backup at this point in time.
Have you spoken to the CEOs of the different hospitals, the Providence, Del Sol, as well as UMC, as to how close we are to needing more beds, either at the convention or the tents outside those hospitals?
Well, my full communication, because of the relationship with the county and UMC and Children's Hospital, is with Cindy Stout, the CEO from Children's Hospital, and with Jacob Cintron. And then he, in turn, has engaged he's taken quite a leadership, and I think there's a tremendous amount of respect. He had been a CEO of a private hospital as well, so has a great relationship. We're at capacity. I mean, we're at 100% capacity right now, and there are people, according to Dr. Carranza in his visits yesterday, there are individuals in the hallways at this time waiting to be seen. So the space it's a dire need. We need to go into the tent situation. From there, we have to go into a little bit more aggressive, require more resources, and then the convention needs to really, we have to hit that pretty hard and with no, misses. I mean, it has to happen for us to feel comfortable as we're moving in that direction.
You brought up the whole question of resources, and you've spoken to the CEOs of the hospital as well as with Governor Abbott. Where are we in terms of resources needed to combat COVID-19 right now in El Paso?
Well, actually, he's been pretty generous. We've gotten over 800 medical professionals that are here in our community that are helping extremely motivated individuals. Heard some great information about their capacity and their passion to serve. So that's going to be really important. We've got the tents coming up and requiring or asking or requesting more. So that's from the side of taking care of the virus. On the side of flattening the curve, I did ask for more resources on enforcement from TABC. I felt that we were, I made him accountable as well, because he was saying that we weren't doing enough. And we had requested through Representative Blanco, he's requested TABC agents. So I did request that. And I did get a call or a text, from his chief of staff, Luis Sainz. And he said that he would really work hard on getting us more. They have more of an ability to enforce not bars because they're closed, but restaurants, because within their orders they can find things that they might be violating and not necessarily COVID related. One of the things that we found that's not happening in the businesses or the restaurants is that every business has to have a health and safety policy, and that's according to the constables on Friday night. I kept up with them. We were calling each other, and they said one of the biggest violations is not having. So they allowed them to work on the policies, and then we're coming back. Before it was just weekends. Now it's going to be every single day, visiting restaurants and making sure that we don't, the governor doesn't continue to say that we have restaurants that are beyond the 50%, or that we're not enforcing the masking or any of the other things that he addressed.
Right. Across state lines over New Mexico, Governor Michelle Lujan Grisham is enforcing the restaurants and whatnot. If they see that they have cases at certain businesses, she's going to order them shut down. Are we looking at anything near that here in El Paso?
Yeah, we're at that point. So we've been, looking at compliance. We've been looking at education. I think we've done all our basic work that I think we could feel very comfortable to go into a business, and it's not going to be a surprise to them that we enforce it with a violation, with a 500 violation because it's a business, or that we have a 250 fine on someone who's not wearing a mask, plus the company or the organization that allowed them to be in there without a mask. I feel very comfortable that we've done a lot. I know we've been criticized that we've done too much compliance and too much enforcement, but that's El Paso. I mean, that's how we approach our citizens. And now I feel comfortable that we've done enough. Whether we have the resources, I'm not sure if we have all the resources. We're creating a task force that I'll be creating immediately to get county employees and the sheriff's department to be able to look at businesses without citing a violation, but then informing the peace officers of a violation or not adhering to any of the protocols that we're requesting at this time.
Judge, with the 1 minute that I have left, I know that Congresswoman Veronica Escobar earlier in the week called on FEMA to come to El Paso and help us with our dire situation. What is the status of that?
Well, we have been working. A lot of individuals don't know that we work close with FEMA because most of anything federal. This would be like emergency at the federal level, just like we have emergency with Chief Agustino and Chief Rodriguez at the local level. And then we have Office of Emergency Management at the state level. FEMA is just one more layer at the federal level. So any type of support that we get, whether it's health practitioners or resources like the tents and so forth, that'll be coming from a federal level. And that's why the relationship with Congresswoman Escobar is so important, to maintain that pressure at the federal level. Because as you see, we exhaust things at each one of the levels. And we are at the federal level now where we need a tremendous amount of help, being one of the highest in positive cases in the country. The highest in Texas, and I believe number 9 in the nation, something that we're not used to. We actually get a lot of accolades for a lot of great things, but having that kind of focus on us is not very comfortable. But I know that our constituents are doing everything that we can. I still believe it's the dynamics that we have here that are very different anywhere else. We also worry about the 20 to 35 that somehow we're not reaching them, Saul. And I know KVIA has allowed me a lot of opportunities to try to reach individuals, and I think that's where we've been more effective. So we need the media more engaged in helping us communicate as much as we can, because they are watching Netflix and streaming and other things where they're not paying attention to the numbers.
County Judge Ricardo Samaniego, thank you so much for being with us. And I know I let you know in such short notice, so I appreciate you answering the call.
Hey, it's KVIA. You always there for me. I hope I can always be there for you guys. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Judge. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
And thank you for allowing us into your homes. The best way to combat this virus is to have as much information on hand as needed. We're here at ABC-7. We'll try to get as much information to you as possible. For now, I'm Saul Sainz, and this has been ABC-7 Extra. Good night y buenas noches.